Hello, and welcome to today's teleconference hosted by MS Focus, the Multiple Sclerosis Foundation. I'm your host, Chris Payne, editor at MS Focus, and I'm joined by Tiffany Malone, MSW, MSCS, Program Manager, MS Achievement Center, who will be talking to us about managing depression, a mindful approach. Tiffany Malone began her postgraduate career working in the field of neurology in home and community-based rehab programs. She joined the MS Achievement Center in November of 2014 as program manager. She is responsible for development of program curriculum and facilitation of activities and education to promote cognitive, physical, social, and emotional wellness for people living with multiple sclerosis and their support partners. Tiffany has a Master's of Social Work and is an MS specialist. We're pleased to have her join us to present this important topic. Tiffany, thank you for being with us, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Chris, and a warm welcome to everyone. Thank you for being with us today. Thank you to the MS Foundation for inviting me to talk about this topic, which I think is quite timely in the current situation we're all experiencing right now. So I'm going to talk about depression today as part of this presentation, but really a majority of the presentation is going to be focused on the strategies for protecting emotional health. That's important no matter what time of the year or situation we're going through, but certainly it seems to be quite necessary right now as we all are under the stay-at-home orders. And I want to say that this information presented today is not just for you as the person living with multiple sclerosis. This topic is important and affects everybody. And I'm also going to be speaking to you as the support partner or the caregiver, the loved one, as we go through this topic. Depression affects about 20% of the general population. That more than doubles to 50% for people living with MS. Let me say that those percentages are based on people who are diagnosed with clinical depression. That doesn't include the population that are feeling low, feeling down, feeling very sad. But again, that's for those who have been given that diagnosis of clinical depression. If we include the other population, those numbers obviously would be much higher. Depression can exacerbate the MS symptoms that you are challenged by, meaning that all of those challenges, all of those symptoms that you're experiencing may feel worse when you're also challenged by depression. Symptoms like pain, fatigue, sleep problems, concentration, and memory. And for those that may not have been given a diagnosis of clinical depression, how do you know if you're challenged by depression? It's a big word. And I'll ask you to ask yourself these two questions. During the past 2 weeks, have you often felt down, depressed, or hopeless? During the past 2 weeks, have you had little interest or pleasure in doing things? If you answered yes to either or both of those questions, I would encourage you to talk to your healthcare provider. If you answered maybe to either or both of those questions, I would also encourage you to talk to your healthcare provider. And if you're unsure of your answer right now, maybe come back in a few days and ask yourself those two questions again and reassess. The key part of this is that depression is treatable. It's treatable through medication. It's treatable through counseling, or what I will call talk therapy. And it's most significantly treatable through the combination of both. Now, if you have tried medication before, if you have tried counseling before, and it didn't work, and you're still battling depression, I would encourage you to consider making a modification or trying something different, perhaps a different medication, perhaps a different dose of your medication. Maybe trying a different therapist. Maybe that wasn't a good relationship and you weren't able to establish a good, safe relationship with the person you talked with before. Establishment of both of these things takes time. So on top of trying to manage the depression, we have to ask ourselves to be patient. It takes about 21 days for a medication to really show some sort of effect. And it's usually a very small effect. So it's not a night and day, overnight change. And so sometimes that can be frustrating and we think that it's not working. But again, we have to give it time. And we might need to make some modifications with the dosing or the actual medication. The key, though, is to not give up, to continue advocating for yourself and for your emotional wellness. Now, the past 2 weeks have been anything but normal. So you may think to yourself, well, it hasn't been normal, so of course I'm answering yes to those questions. If you have already been given a diagnosis of depression and you answer those questions because you are feeling lower than usual, contact your healthcare provider. It might be time for a temporary adjustment of your medication. Additionally, if you've already established care with a mental health professional, a counselor, a therapist, a psychologist, or a social worker, hopefully you've been able to maintain that relationship with them through telehealth or some virtual meeting. And if that hasn't been offered to you, I would encourage you to contact your healthcare provider and find out how you can make that happen. To maintain that relationship right now is really important. Now, if you answered yes or maybe to those questions and you don't have a previous diagnosis of depression, it's still important to contact your healthcare provider, even during the stay-at-home orders, to talk with them and say, I'm not feeling great right now. I'm feeling more down, more hopeless. It might be something that they prescribe something for you temporarily to get you through this uncertain period of time. And depression is just one piece of the puzzle. In order to protect our emotional wellness, we have to protect our overall wellness. This includes relationships, our physical health, nutrition, and our daily activities. When one part of our health and wellness is affected, it dominoes into affecting the other parts. And again, this is speaking to both you, the person living with MS, and you, the support partner. We all have to protect our overall wellness. We want to be able to care for each other and for that not to be compromised. So throughout the remainder of this presentation, we're going to review the details of those components. And we're going to start with the emotional wellness and look at it from a broader sense than just depression. Again, MS affects everyone involved. It's not just the person living with MS that is affected. It affects their loved ones, family, support partners, caregivers. And there are some common emotional reactions for everyone related to the diagnosis of MS. Depression is a stage of grief. And grief comes with that continuous sense of loss of the person I was before MS, or who we were before the diagnosis of MS. The loss of ability, the loss of a job, the loss of relationships. Right now, you might be experiencing some sense of loss with the loss of being able to go out and do some of the things you enjoy doing. There's anxiety, that constant sense of worry and stress about what this diagnosis means and how it's going to affect us. Anger. This isn't what I or we signed up for. This is not what we had planned for our lives or for my life. And it's taken so much away from me and from us. There's a sense of guilt that comes with this. How will I be able to care for my family? Will I be able to take care of my loved one with MS? How can I take time for myself when I need to care for my loved one? There's fear of the unknown, Constantly asking yourself, what if? What if I lose more ability? What if this continues to progress? What if I lose my job? What if I can no longer care for myself or for my loved one? There's fear of the financial burden that this will bring. And asking, what does the future hold? And isolation is already something that we feel with the diagnosis of MS, and probably more so right now. But with that constant loss of relationships, with having less connectivity to people and to our social environment, all of these emotions are natural. We are supposed to feel them. We're supposed to experience them as they come up. It's important to acknowledge them. It's important to experience them. But if we don't acknowledge them, address them, manage them, they will linger. And they become an extremely heavy weight for us emotionally. Now, these are not one and done emotions. So if you're saying, I've already been through the grieving process, it doesn't mean that you won't go through it again. Again, the diagnosis of MS can come with multiple senses of loss. And so you may experience these emotions throughout the diagnosis. So we have to be aware of what the emotional burden is of those emotions. Because when we don't acknowledge, address, or manage those emotions, they get stuffed into what I call the emotional backpack. Now, what does that mean? Well, imagine you're carrying an empty backpack. You're carrying it on your shoulders. Perhaps you're carrying it on your lap, in your wheelchair. Perhaps it's sitting on your walker as you're walking around. With it being empty, that doesn't feel too bad. It's pretty light. It's manageable. And maybe you don't even notice it's there. Now imagine placing rocks in your backpack. Each one of the emotions we just talked about is a rock. And the more we put in our backpack without taking any out, the heavier that backpack becomes. And imagine the heaviness that you now feel on your shoulders, your back, your lap, and your arms as you carry around all those rocks. Imagine how that would affect your mobility and your physical function. When we aren't managing the challenging emotions and our emotional backpacks are getting heavier, that weight will eventually become unbearable. So what do I do about it? Protect the emotional bank account. Dr. John Gottman has done extensive research on communication and relationships and emotional health. And he states that it takes 5 to 15 positive interactions to balance out every one negative interaction. I know there were numbers in there, so I'm going to repeat that. It takes 5 to 15 positive interactions to balance out every one negative interaction. It's pretty easy to find everything that didn't go right today. It's pretty easy to say, well, that didn't work and I couldn't do that. So we need to find a lot of positive interactions in our day to balance out the stuff that's weighing on the forefront of our minds. And we need to do that because it affects not just our emotional wellness, but also our cognition. Mood affects your thinking skills, how you process information, the speed at which you're processing that information, your memory, attention, decision-making skills. And at least 65% of people living with MS will experience cognitive dysfunction at some point in the diagnosis, 65%. When there's also challenge with emotional wellness and depression, those cognitive challenges can be exacerbated. And those cognitive challenges are directly affected by depression and anxiety. So now let's talk about how we protect that emotional bank account. Let's talk about how we protect emotional wellness. And so this slide shows a list of strategies for improving mood and increasing happiness. We want to find more good stuff in our days. And the list includes meditation, exercise and body awareness, nutrition, sleep, finding meaningful activities, positive thinking, and journaling. And we're going to go through those individually. Some people may think that meditation is not for them. And it's not something that is easily, that you easily start. It definitely takes practice. This slide shows several free applications that you can download and use as meditation, guided meditation, breathing techniques, and strategies for calming the mind. Some of the apps that are listed include Calm, HEADSPACE, the mindfulness app. And you want to use them when you're feeling stressed, anxious, fearful, confused, or even having trouble sleeping. Allow them to help you center your mind, body, and spirit. Some of these only take a few minutes, while others may take you through a lengthier, more involved meditation process. The key is that calming the mind does not have to take an extended period of time to achieve. And part of protecting our emotional wellness is protecting our physical wellness. Some of us may have had a good exercise regimen prior to the stay-at-home orders. And now trying to structure an at-home gym and an at-home routine may be challenging. Some of us may not have had an exercise regimen at all prior to stay-at-home orders. And so where do I get started? How do I get started? Whether it's stretching, taking a walk outside, using canned food for weight and strength training, or finding an adaptive yoga video online, find what you are willing to do and do it. Keep your body moving, which will help keep your mind in a better space. And I know that there are several webinars and teleconferences that have already been recorded specifically on physical wellness. So if you're looking for something specific of what you can do and how you can get started or how you can modify your current exercise regimen, I would encourage you to look at those archived. Keeping your body moving does not just have to fall under the exercise category. Keeping moving in general is really important. This slide shows some pictures of members from the MS Achievement Center participating in a variety of adaptive activities. It shows someone at the bowling alley using the ramp. And also we had people in wheelchairs that were bowling at that same activity. It also shows a picture of our members participating in chair Zumba. Oftentimes people hear Zumba and say, oh, that's not for me. And the chair Zumba is quite a nice adaptation for that. We've even taken our members ice skating, and you can see in the bottom picture that our member is using a walker type piece of equipment on the ice. People in wheelchairs were out on the ice as well. Now, I know that these pictures show things that we can't necessarily go out and do right now. And there's many community activities that we aren't able to do right now. But there's still a way to do some of them at home. For example, set up your own bowling alley with water bottles and a tennis ball. Or maybe use the bowling game on your video gaming system to keep moving. Chair Zumba videos are available online and can be done from the comfort of your own home. Additionally, think about how you are moving throughout your day. Are you finding yourself frequently distracted? Do you have too much on your mind? Do you get into a room and lose track of why you needed to be there? Are you bumping into walls, falling more because you're not paying attention to your movements? Perhaps you're rushing to get from point A to point B. By being present in the moment, by being mindful of our movements and to the pace of our movements, we can reduce the amount of those distractions and protect our physical bodies by avoiding or reducing the number of those missteps, those losses of balances, and certainly those falls. It's important that we listen to our body. This slide says if you listen to your body when it whispers, you won't have to hear it scream. That body awareness is very important. We need to know what our bodies are saying to us. If we wait until it's too late, the management of those symptoms becomes overwhelming. And that tips into the emotional scale toward fear, anxiety, anger, frustration, grief. When we stay in tune with what our body needs on an ongoing basis, when we feel better physically, we feel better emotionally. And one way to do that is to look at this scale and use this scale. This says know your pain. It is the pain scale. Many of us know that from the doctor's office. We've seen those faces multiple times. On a scale from 0 to 10, the doctor will ask, where's your pain fall? 0 being absolutely no pain, 10 being the worst pain possible. Maybe you're not experiencing pain. Maybe you're experiencing discomfort. Maybe you're experiencing numbness or tingling. Use this scale for whatever symptom you're experiencing and monitor it. Monitor it on an ongoing basis. These can be physical challenges, and pain specifically is experienced by many people living with MS. And pain or discomfort might be more of a challenge right now, especially if you're finding yourself more sedentary at home. So we need to listen to our body and know what our pain level or our discomfort level or our numbness level is throughout the day and throughout the week, so that we know when there is a change, even a slight change. If pain or discomfort or numbness is getting me down, I may not be mindful about where that level is right now. And I might always report that it's at a level 8. It's at an 8. It's at an 8 without really giving it any consideration. When I am focusing on where those levels are in the moment, then I can recognize and acknowledge even those slight changes, one way or the other, that it's feeling a little bit worse today. It's actually at a 9 right now. But if I've been monitoring it over time, then I might be able to say, gosh, it was at an 8 a couple of hours ago. It's at a 9 now. What happened in those couple of hours that may have contributed to the change? Same is true for if it's reduced. If it was at an 8 and a couple hours later, you notice it's at a 6 or a 7. What did I do? What could be contributing to the fact that it was reduced a little bit? So that I know I might be able to practice that more frequently to have that reduction. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, your perception of pain, discomfort, numbness, fatigue might be skewed if I'm challenged emotionally and challenged by depression. It may mean that my perception of those symptoms is higher than what it really is. When I allow myself to be mindful and present in the moment, to rate those symptoms at that present moment, then I can honestly understand where I am at any given time and be able to address the symptom without needing to address right now the emotional state. Because it might actually be the emotional state that's at an 8, not the symptom. We need to keep our body fueled. Food is your energy. And nutrition is a key component to overall wellness. When we aren't properly fueled, when our brain's not properly fueled, when our body's not properly fueled, it can make us feel lethargic, fatigued, down. So this slide gives just a few strategies for how to keep your body properly fueled. And it starts with eating at the beginning of your day. I'm not going to call it breakfast. I'm not going to call it lunch. I'm not going to call it brunch. Eat at the beginning of your day. Take the labels away from food and just know that you need the fuel. So whenever your day gets started, make sure you get something in your body to start that fueling process. And introduce a variety of foods into your nutrition plan. I say on the slide, eat the rainbow. And much to my husband's disappointment, that does not mean eating Skittles. That means having a variety of fruits and vegetables and color introduced into your meal planning. And again, that may be more challenging right now, but hopefully you're able to get deliveries or find enough variety for your diet. Have healthy grab-and-go foods that are available and accessible to you throughout the day. Now, when we're not under stay-at-home orders, this is really important because if you have multiple appointments or you're not going to be home for long periods of time, and then you get hungry, the easy thing is to stop through the drive-thru and grab something that may fuel you for the moment, but may send you crashing down shortly afterward, or making you feel that lethargy. So having those grab-and-go foods prepared for yourself that you can take with you can be really helpful. Having things like trail mix, vegetables and a portable dip, cheese and crackers, things that are easy that you can pack in plastic bags or containers and have with you, and that also saves money in the end. Now, how that works with the stay-at-home orders is that you have those foods available to you for when you're roaming around the kitchen again. But rather than having to think about what you're going to grab or grabbing the salty snacks that are comfort food, I have some vegetables already cut up and prepared in the fridge. They're right there at eye level. I'm going to grab those and have those as my snack right now or as my fuel for right now. But they're ready to go, and I don't have to think about it. Staying hydrated is also very important. And maybe you're not a fan of plain water. Infuse your water. Spice it up a little bit. Give it some flavor. Add some fruits. Add some herbs. The picture at the bottom right shows cucumbers, strawberries and lemon, strawberries and mint. So try some of your favorite combinations and see if that helps keep you hydrated throughout the day. Planning and preparing your meal plans and your nutrition can be really helpful so that, again, it takes the thinking out of it at the time that you want it to happen or need for it to happen. When you set an intention for what you're going to make throughout the week, then you know what your shopping list needs to be. Or when you look at what you already have and plan based on that, then you know that you can utilize the food that's already in your pantry and in your refrigerator. So having some ideas about what to have throughout the week can be helpful so that, again, if you're having a lower energy day, if you're feeling more fatigued and it's time to cook dinner, you already have that idea set in place, and you don't have to do the thinking part of it. Sleep is also really important and might be something that you battled with prior to the stay-at-home orders. Maybe it's something you're battling with now. Maybe you're finding that you're getting a substantial amount of sleep now that you're at home. Either way, it's important to practice good sleep hygiene. The temperature of your room is key. Making sure that it's comfortable, that you're not too hot more so that you're not too hot, because that's going to be extremely uncomfortable. And many people living with MS battle with heat fatigue. So you definitely don't want to be adding that when you're trying to get restful sleep. So keeping it cool enough, maybe having a fan on, maybe having the windows open. Maybe we're already kicking on the air conditioner a little bit as the temperature is outside warm, but making sure that the environment is cool and comfortable. And use breathable fabrics, both for your bedding and for your pajamas. This is not the time, especially if temperature is an issue, that we have the nice silky pajamas. They're not breathable. They may be helpful in transferring and sliding back and forth, and if that's your priority, then that's okay. But if temperature is your priority, rethink some of those fabrics. Think about your sleep partners. Perhaps you have a sleep partner that is more vocal, and that's affecting sleep. And think about how that might be able to be managed. Think about what you're doing right before you go to bed. Are you a TV in bed kind of person? Are you on your tablet or your phone? Right now we're connected to all of our technology. And so you might have your cell phone next to you. You might have a tablet next to you. You might have a TV in the bedroom. But think about what you're doing right before you go to bed and how you might be affecting restful sleep. When we introduce the light that comes from those electronics, it sends a message to the brain that says, oh, it's time to be awake. It's time to be active. And that confuses the body that you're trying to tell that it's time to slow down and go to bed. So think about how that might be affecting you. Maybe you are someone who likes to read before bed. And if that works for you, don't mess with it. But think about how that might be affecting your overall sleep. Think about noise and light. Is the fan making noise and bothering you? So trying to balance out the pros and cons of a fan. Thinking about light that you might have. It might be necessary to have a light on in the restroom so that in case you need to get up in the middle of the night, or when you need to get up in the middle of the night, you're able to see that. But maybe that's disrupting your sleep. So think about a motion sensor. Think about a night light that might be able to be turned on as needed. Think about your exercise regimen. Are you exercising later in the day? And is that getting you amped up? And it's hard to come back down and calm down and get ready for restful sleep. So maybe adjusting when you exercise might be important. And overall comfort. Have we switched the mattress around? Have we replaced pillows? It's important to do that from time to time. So if you're still using the same pillow from several years ago, that might be something to replace and to think about. And I did mention with light, the needing to get up in the middle of the night for the restroom. And I know that that's a challenge for many people. So having a plan in place for that. Think about, again, I'm going to conflict myself where I said you need to stay hydrated, but we also need to consider what time we might need to cut those liquids off in order to reduce the amount of times that we have to get up in the middle of the night. And when we know that that's a possibility, perhaps we think about a bedside commode. Perhaps we make sure, especially if we're going a long distance from bed to the bathroom, thinking about making sure that there's a clear path getting to the restroom. And again, making sure that you have a light that is accessible to you so that you reduce the amount of missteps, trips, falls. Planning for meaningful activities. We need stuff other than doctor's appointments, lab work, MRIs, infusions. You want to get something on your schedule that you're looking forward to. And I encourage that you get it on a schedule that you can see. So if you have a calendar hanging on the refrigerator or on the wall, write it on there, circle it, highlight it, put stars around it. I'm excited about this activity. I'm really looking forward to it. That gives me hope, that gives me motivation, that brings me joy even just thinking about it. We want to have more of that in our lives. Now, right now, that might be a little more challenging. I have pictures here on this slide of our members playing bunco together, having a game night, going out to the movies, and having a paint class. Those things aren't happening together in person, but we can introduce some virtual activities that are meaningful, that we still look forward to. Game night as a virtual meeting is an option. Having a family movie night, popping the popcorn, getting our pajamas on, getting the blankets out, and having a fun movie night as a family can still happen. And there might be some online paint classes. Maybe it's not something you've ever thought of before, but maybe it's something you want to try at home. And finding those activities that you might be able to participate in. But still find something with family and friends that you can do virtually. And when we get out of the stay-at-home orders, get those things in person on your calendar that are outside of those medical appointments. Living with MS by itself can be isolating. And that feeling of isolation might be especially challenging right now. It may be more difficult to maintain valuable relationships. It may be more difficult right now to maintain your circle of support. I would encourage you to be mindful about how this is affecting you right now and how it affects you in general. Research shows that connections are the core to happiness. It protects our coping abilities. It protects friendships. And it protects support. So social relationships are the greatest single investment that we can make. And it's really important that we make those and keep those right now. And perhaps you're finding that the opposite is true and that you have more connection with people, that you're having more phone calls with distant friends and family, that you are having more virtual gatherings, and finding ways to maintain those relationships once the stay-at-home orders are lifted. Because it's really important that we keep that community and that we keep those circles of support intact to protect ourselves. Part of being mindful is being aware of where your headspace is. Be in charge of how you spend your time. Be in charge of how you spend your energy. And recognize what's taking up your headspace. If it's negative, let's be mindful about that. So negative headspace includes those thoughts of, I used to be able to. And not from a memory of a fond memory. Oh, I used to be able to do those things and I really enjoyed that. But thinking of it as, I used to be able to do that much faster. I used to be able to do that by myself. And the negative weight that has, because it means that right now, whatever is working isn't enough. The what ifs. What if there's progression? What if I'm going to lose my job? What if I'm going to have to use a mobility device? Those are questions that we don't have answers for. So being mindful about how much space that's taking up, how much time, and how much energy. I can't is another big one that weighs on the head. I can't get dressed. I can't cook dinner. And what happens every time we say, I can't, we're taking away from what we can. The I can't is true most of the time. When that's all that we're focused on, we're taking away from what we can, even when it looks different. We have to be mindful about how the news is affecting us in general, But specifically right now, it's hard to get away from the updates about the coronavirus. It's hard to get away from news in general. But finding how that's affecting you, if that's causing you to be more angry, if that's causing you to be more quick to react, to have a shorter fuse, then think about reducing the amount of time you spend with the news and make sure that you're going to reliable sources for the news and for your information. Social media, same thing. How much time and energy is being spent on social media? And perhaps you're finding yourself reading people venting, or again, the news is in the social media as well, so we can't get away from that if we're on social media. Again, how much time are we spending in those platforms, and how is that affecting us emotionally? The internet. If it wasn't enough that I was getting my information from the TV and then from social media, now I'm going to get on the internet and go to the multiple websites that I know of. And again, that's taking up a lot of time, a lot of energy, and potentially a lot of negative headspace. So reducing the amount of time that you're spending with those things and introducing some other more positive things, which we'll talk about in a moment. Also be aware of what I call the needy friends and family. We all have them. We all know that when that person pops up on our caller ID, that this is going to be a 2-hour conversation of a lot of venting and a lot of negativity. Be aware of those people in your lives. Be aware of how much energy they take from you. And be aware of how that's affecting your emotional health. Be choosy about how you spend that time. We don't have to pick up the phone or answer every single email right away. We can be in control of when and how that happens. So introducing more positive thoughts. How do we do that? We have to balance out the emotional bank account scale, especially if we're checking yes to all of those boxes from the negative headspace slide. If we've got a lot of that going on, we definitely need to bring in some positive. Practice gratitude. So start with 3 gratitudes a day. Keep it simple. These don't have to be grandiose gratitudes. But anything that brought you joy, that made you smile, that brought you peace, recognize it. Share it as a family. Keep it to yourself. Maybe it's something that you do first thing to start off your day on a positive note. Maybe you do it at the end of the day before you're getting ready to go to bed. But really reviewing your time and finding those moments of joy and peace and calm. Journaling is sometimes considered a lost art. And it doesn't have to be the Dear Diary kind of journaling. Journaling can be really important and useful in your life for a variety of reasons. Number one, it can be a great place that you keep your gratitudes. Writing them down allows you the ability to go back and review them. I personally go back from the last 4 years that I've been practicing gratitudes and look back at all of them that I've documented. And I especially use those during the times and on the days that aren't going so well, when I'm really having trouble finding a gratitude for that day. I'll go back and review the previous ones because it puts me in the right mindset. Journaling can also act as a way to track your MS symptoms. I'm sure we've all gotten to the doctor after 6 months or a year or whatever it is, and they say, how you doing? Oh, I'm doing just fine. Because in that moment, you probably are. You might be. But I've forgotten everything that's happened over the last 6 months or a year that didn't go so well, that I did want to talk to my doctor about. So this might be an opportunity to track your MS symptoms or health symptoms in general, so that you have those to hand when it's time to go to the appointment. Questions that you have for your doctor. Right now we don't have many doctor's appointments. So maybe I need to jot down what my questions are as they arise, so that when I do get to that appointment, I can have those right to hand. And I write down worries and fears on this list because what I have found from many of our members and many of the clients that I work with is that one of the things that affects their sleep the most is that they go to bed with worry and fear. Write those things down, get them in a safe place that you can come back to them when you have more information, or when you have somebody in your circle of support that you can reach out to help you troubleshoot some of those worries and fears. But by journaling them, it puts them in a safe place that allows you to focus on whatever it is that you need or want to be focusing on right now. In that example, it was sleep. So if I know that those worries, those questions, those fears are documented in my journal, I can put them to rest as I put myself to rest. And it doesn't have to be pen and paper. It can be dictating it on your tablet or dictating it on your phone. Whatever works. It doesn't have to be a true journal entry. Now, I know that these times are uncertain that we're experiencing right now. And so your emotional wellness may be all over the place. But I hope that you took something from today's discussion that you might be able to introduce into your own daily practice and into your own habits. I hope there was at least one thing that spoke to you that you might be able to address in the coming days and weeks. When we build new, healthy habits, when we change what's not working in our existing habits, that takes time. That takes patience. That takes conscious effort. But when we have a healthy body and a healthy mind, that leads to happiness, to joy, to peace of mind, and allows us to have an intention for a better day. I'd like to thank you for your time today. And that's the conclusion of this presentation.
Thank you so much. We have time for just a couple of questions. So I guess I will start with a question. When are ideal times to exercise?
So that's based on each individual. It really depends on when your best time of day is. For some people, that's earlier in the day, and doing the exercise would be more valuable to them at the beginning of the day. And for some people, they feel better and more energized in the afternoon. So really, it's up to that person. How I approach that is that you want to see how that's affecting you from a sleep perspective. So if that's getting you really energized and you're having trouble coming down after the exercise and not being able to sleep restfully at night because you exercise too late in the day, then that might be where you need to modify and try to change the time of day that you're doing those activities. But when you feel good and when you feel like you have the energy to exercise, that's when you should do it.
Another quick question for you. Why do negative interactions have such a profound weight for us psychologically?
Because they stick with us. The negative stuff seems to be easier to focus on. It's easy to focus on what's not going well. For the stuff that's causing our day to be bad. And so, I mean, we get that from the news. We get that from society. There's a lot of information that comes at us on a daily basis that isn't always positive. And so that can contribute to our own views and our own emotions and how we're viewing our own days. We need more of the good stuff. We need the news reports. We need the stories that bring us happiness and joy and gratitude. And we need those for ourselves in our own stories. It's not that they're heavier. It's that we don't have enough of the positive stuff to outweigh the negative stuff.
One more question before we go. And I think this really gets to the sort of issue at heart. We as a society sort of have a stigma regarding mental health. How do you deal with the stigma of seeking treatment for mental health issues?
That's a really good question. And again, it's a very individualized feeling about seeking mental health help. What I would say is that we come to we have our stories based on our experiences, how we were raised, our culture, our religion. All of that plays a part in how we feel, how we approach things like mental health. And so oftentimes we're expected to hide those things. And so what I would suggest is that if you are feeling challenged from an emotional standpoint, and you also feel conflicted because you're supposed to hide those or stuff them, again, that's all going into your emotional backpack, then I would really suggest finding a way that you can do that as an individual, that you can reach out and talk with someone that you trust. It might be your neurologist. It might be a nurse. It might be your primary care. It might be your physical therapist. To start talking about, I'm not feeling great. And I'm feeling more down and isolated, and perhaps I'm feeling more depressed. Starting that conversation with just one person is all it takes to start talking it out and finding that even just talking about it is therapeutic. And maybe it's not a medical professional. Maybe you start with talking with a friend or someone that you've met through a support group. Finding someone that you can talk those feelings out with, not necessarily that it's going to get fixed, but that it gets it out in the open and makes it real and makes it valid and makes it part of your story so that you can go to the next step if that's something that you need or want to do.
Thank you so much. That's all the time we have for now. Remember to follow MS Focus on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for times and access information. Our sincere thanks to our sponsors and for their support, and all of our callers for your participation, and especially to Tiffany Malone. Thank you so much for the time you've spent to prepare and share this information with us.
Thank you, Chris.